This is The Roadmap with Lee Heisman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Roadmap, exclusively here on ASBN.com. I'm Lee Heisman, and every week we bring you some of the brightest entrepreneurs, CEOs, and business owners who are climbing the ladder, scaling their businesses, and thinking about how one day to exit stage left. I'd love to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Humza Khan, the founder of ZA Dance Studio.
Pleasure
Humza,
to be here.
welcome to the show. You're the first dancer we've ever had on the show.
Come on now. Good to represent.
Well, thank you for wearing the glasses. I asked you to put them on because this is the style, right?
Yes.
You've been in this space for so many years. And I want to talk a little bit about how you started into the dance space. I mean, you loved dancing growing up, but talk about your early beginnings before ZA Dance.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started dancing, I was really young, maybe around like 7 or 8. And I didn't have any professional training until I went to high school. But dance for me was an escape, to be honest. I had a little bit of a rough childhood growing up, and dance was almost a therapy for me. And especially for me, I grew up with a lot of ADHD and that kind of stuff. So dance was a perfect way for me to kind of like put a lot of my energy into something that's physical, as well as be able to have my mental stimulated with creativity and things like that. And then when I went to high school, that's when I started taking dance seriously, and I decided I wanted to pursue it professionally.
Because I love the whole style. Is style part of dance as well?
Yes.
Is it performative? Is everything performative?
Absolutely. And also you can have your own original style to it as well that you can tack on. So one of my favorite things was watching dancers that I admired and grabbing certain things from each dancer and constructing my own persona around dance. So that's...
Everything I've known about you, you've done a great job doing it. But I'd love to ask a question about those personal hurdles, because a lot of people who might see you at ZA Studio, of course, and ZA Dance Studio might go, well, this looks pretty easy for Humza. He makes everything look easy. Nothing's been a challenge for him.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about those personal hurdles that you've had to overcome, because a lot of entrepreneurs out there, or wantrepreneurs, people that want to be entrepreneurs, they need to hear that it's not as easy as everybody makes it look to be.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. And especially when you're young, the biggest thing is the age problem. So a lot of people look at you because you're young and they think that, maybe you're not as competent as somebody that's older or those kinds of situations. So the biggest thing is, one, I think that you have to approach everything with confidence. And I always have this phrase where I say, if you're going to do a backflip, don't hesitate. Because when you hesitate midair, that's when you go splatting on the ground, right? So sometimes just that brutal confidence going into something and committing to it is what's going to get you over just enough. You're probably not going to stick it the first time, but you'll land on your knees and you could try it again. And so my biggest hurdles when I was really going into it was obviously, one, you have the aspect of when you're pursuing a professional dance career, you have a lot of risk that's coming with that. You're not taking the typical college route. So when I pursued dance, I had to know that I had a lot of credibility backed up to be able to have confidence from the people around me in what I'm doing. So I knew that I had to go on TV shows like World of Dance. I knew that I had to get signed to a professional dance agency. I knew that I had to show that I was working hard and come up with a plan and showcase that to the people around me and get their opinions on certain things. I feel like a lot of the times people, they want to do something, but they don't have a plan to do it. So they just jump right in, and that shakes everybody's confidence a bit. But if you have a very laid out, clear structure to what you're doing, that's also gonna bring confidence in yourself, which can help you get over that backflip.
Wow, that's really smart. I mean, and again, you're younger. We joke about that,
Yeah.
right? But your experience is still very, very, very large for how young you are. Talk a little about moving back here from Indiana and
Yeah.
relocating. But you worked on shows like Nickelodeon, Disney, and you've worked with Kanye West. Talk a little bit about how did you land these opportunities?
Absolutely. So when I was in Indiana, I was kind of a big fish in the small pond a little bit. I was up there and I became like state champion. I competed at nationals competitions. I was in a lot of breaking battles. So my background is with breakdancing. That's kind of like my first fundamental structure, is I had like the head spins, the backflips, the wow factors, that kind of stuff. And that's what really helped accelerate me in the dance world. So when I moved out here to Atlanta, I just knew that there wasn't a lot of opportunities in Indiana. So Atlanta was the hot spot for me. And I had some family members out here that could still help me out while doing it. And I ended up getting signed my very first month actually moving out here to a studio called Dance 411. And that was where I started landing a lot of the really, really big gigs. And it happened very quickly.
Is that common for it to happen that quickly and for you to get signed? Or is that just a testament to your skill set?
I think, I say this humbly, but I want to say there's two different types of dancers in the dance world. Usually you have the dancers that can do all the choreo, but they can't do all the tricks. Or you have the dancers that can do all the tricks, but they can't do all the choreo. And I was kind of a double-bladed sword. And so I had both sides. I was able to pick up the choreo and execute it clean enough to be able to blend in with the group. but I also had all the wow factors as well. So I think that combination is what allowed me to become very bookable. And
So go back to that, because I'm glad you spoke of the choreography you speak of. Is that right? You struggled for years with choreography. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
See, a lot of entrepreneurs that are successful like yourself, they talk about, hey, I got this is happening in a good way, but I want to hear the story of how you struggled with it.
Yeah. So funny, my freshman year was the first time that I ever learned choreography. And a lot of people think like with dance, you had to have done this since you were like 2 years old, and that's the only way you can do it. But it's not about how long you've been doing it. It's about the work that you put in between that decides where you're going to be. So when I was a freshman, I have this story that I always tell where I was on team, and in dance, we count in eights. So it's like 5, 6, 7, 8. I didn't know why we stopped at 8. So I just kept counting. So I was in the back and I said 9, 10, 11, 12. And then everybody's like, looking like, what's he doing? 9, 10, 11, 12. And so I was that ignorant to choreography. And that was definitely a struggle for me, was, just the retention of learning how to pick it up quickly, how to be able to execute it clean, lines, getting lower on your levels, textures, details, all of that. I was a freestyle dancer, so I was really good at just pulling it out on the spot. But as far as like remembering it and trying to time it with everybody else, that was absolutely a struggle. How I overcame that was, it's as simple as you just have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. When you're uncomfortable, that's when you grow the most. And so I just kept putting myself in that, and I got used to that uncomfortability. We went to Monsters of Hip Hop for the convention, and so that's where I really learned how to embrace that uncomfortability and grow from there. And so that's my number one recommendation.
So at such a young age to want to lean into being uncomfortable is a testament to you, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
So now at this juncture, in this phase of your life, you were in the spotlight performing. Let's take a step back, and what caused you now to say, I'm going to step out of the spotlight, which is not indicative of a performer, right? You're drawn to the spotlight.
Absolutely.
But what in your mind makes you decide, I want to step out of the spotlight and open up an actual dance studio?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, I think most dancers, when they first pursue their professional dance career, they have a time period of their life where they're teaching dancers and they're, teaching other people how to perform and how to get to that level. What really hit for me was when COVID happened. So I was building up this momentum with dance where, I was getting booked with Nickelodeon, Netflix. I had jobs with like Kodak Black and people like celebrity dancers or celebrity people. And then COVID happened, just stopped everything on a dime. And as a dancer, you kind of have this like idea in your mind that like you're almost invincible, like nothing can break you. And you hear all the time, people are like, if you're going to pursue any type of athletic sport or anything professional that's athletic based, injuries are things you have to worry about. You have to worry about sicknesses or anything like that, but you just have this mindset that can never happen to me. And then COVID happened, and that happened to everybody. And so you're sitting there, 2020, and you're not getting booked on anything. And you're like, well, what now? And so I had a lot of time to think. And I think that's where it dawned on me. I was like, you know what? I want to open a dance studio. And I almost want to take all of the experience that I have and pass that same opportunity on to dancers, beneath me and that are just starting out and trying to get to that same level. And that was a feeling of fulfillment that I've never felt before.
So talk about Za Dance Studio, because you're located here in the Peachtree Corners area, correct? You're just north of here. What makes it unique? Talk about all the different styles that you do.
Absolutely. So we are a K-pop based studio. That's our number one thing.
When you say K-pop, what do you mean by that?
So K-pop is Korean hip hop. So it's to songs that are in Korea that are very popular and famous pop songs, and they do hip hop choreographies to them, and they become really famous choreographies. So what we do is we specialize in breaking that choreography down, teaching it to dancers from a professional level, as well as teaching hip hop, standard fundamentals for all of that. And we throw in different styles like contemporary, jazz, fundamentals, ballet, things like that as well. But those are our two main specialties. K-pop.
So I've seen you run classes all the time. You have a team, which I know of intimately, and then you also have other classes for beginners and advanced. Talk a little about who can come out there and why they would.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the biggest reasons why we started Za Dance Studios was when I was training in Atlanta as a professional dancer, the environment that you're training in that kind of realm is hyper competitive. Everybody is just trying to get booked. And that's a good thing, by the way. Like if you're at that tier and you're around people that are trying to get booked, that's gonna push you to that next level to where you can get booked. But if you're just starting out as a dancer, or you're just trying to get into the atmosphere of dance, and you are hearing like there are certain studios that will not allow beginner dancers. I've seen in real life dancers get taken out of classes because they weren't picking up the choreography. And how are you supposed to recover from that if it's your first time ever dancing? So our shtick with my studio is that we want to create this environment where people feel safe to one, experiment and try new moves and do things that they've never thought that they could do before. And two, to be able to, instead of dancing next to somebody that's more advanced than them, feel intimidated, they feel inspired. And that's one of the biggest things. And that's very purposefully curated within the environment. And that's something that you have to constantly reframe people's mindset about, and encourage them and say things like, if you're uncomfortable, that's a good thing. That's where you're going to grow. And so that's one of the biggest reasons as to why we're at where we're at right now, is because of that environment. And our dancers have this extreme growth period because they're trying new things. They're not just sticking to what they know that they can do. They're experimenting and getting out their comfort zone. So.
Well, and you went out to a competition recently, and your teams, individuals and teams, won awards. I saw them place in the top 5, even out of 10 people. So congratulations to that. And
Thank
it's
you.
A testament to your brand.
Yes,
right? So I hope people
you.
saw that as well. So talk about the future, not just for Zod Dance, but the future for you.
Ooh, great question. So I think I'm at a chapter in my life now where I want to extrapolate all of the lessons that I've learned onto those around me, and be able to bring everybody else to the levels that they want to bring it to. There's something to be said about when you're a dancer or a performer, your whole life is kind of solipsistic, where it's all based around you, and you're very just like, what kind of jobs can I get? How can I promote myself? How can I get booked on this gig? Da 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 da. And when you step back and you have this other mentality of like, I can do the same thing, still build my brand, still build the name, right? But imagine how many other people I can affect in that same realm. By doing that, it's the type of fulfillment that I've never felt before. So I think I'm just going to constantly continue to chase that growth aspect. I want to get my dancers on, World of Dance, on TV shows, and competing on So You Think You Could Dance, and getting dancers booked on real jobs, and trying to take it to that next level, contacting people in Korea to be able to get them backup dancers for, music videos and things like that. That's kind of the trajectory that we're headed on. And that's where I want to see myself and the studio in the future.
Well, you don't know this, but our producer's going to wheel this out, and he's putting music on for you to dance here on camera.
Oh no!
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
I was
kidding.
like, okay.
No,
Here
I
come
know
the head
you would.
spins
I
and the
know
suit.
you would. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But for people who want to learn more about not only you and your entrepreneurial journey, which has been tremendous and huge, even the studio, how would people get in touch with you?
So you can contact us, Zodance Staff, on at gmail.com, or go on our website as well, Zodance Studio. Those are going to be the 2 biggest places where you can contact us. Our phone number's on there as well. And I would say the number one best way is to just come through, show up, come to the studio, type in it on Google Maps, Zodance. The biggest thing that we can't show over the phone or through a website is the environment. Yep. And genuinely, when you go in for the first time, you feel it as soon as you walk in. You feel all the dancers, everybody's very welcoming, everybody's very happy, and everybody loves what they're doing, and it's such a beautiful feeling. So,
well, if they're watching this show, what they can also tell is your positivity, your energy, and your welcomeness, and that matters a lot when you're intimidated in dance.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, it comes across loud and clear here, and I've had personal experience with you. Not me dancing; I'm not anywhere near there.
We're gonna get you one day. We're gonna get him one day.
I like watching. One final question before we wrap up. Again, I love how you say at this chapter in your life, you're almost still near the forward, because you're still so young of the chapter book. But what piece of advice would you give for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that are young like yourself, other than in that discomfort zone, staying uncomfortable? Any other advice you'd give an aspiring entrepreneur?
Yeah, one of the biggest obstacles that you have when you're young is that you don't have experience. So one of the best things that you can do is be quiet and listen. You gotta look at the people around you that do have the experience. If Mike Tyson walked in and he's gonna show me how to throw a punch, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm gonna do it this way, you're not gonna grow, you're not gonna learn. And so you have to look at the people around you that are in better positions than you and ask questions, ask how, and adhere to their advice. Don't think that, because things have worked out for you so far that it's gonna continue that way. You have to always ask and humble yourself. And so that's my number one piece of advice to people who are just getting into that industry, or they're trying to branch out and start their own business, is when you have a network around you of people that are supportive but also have a level up on different categories than you, you should always just listen to what their advice is. And that's best thing.
Humza, you did not disappoint. I threw that curveball at you. I didn't know how you would answer that, and you gave the perfect answer. Spectacular, the perfect answer. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my goodness, words of wisdom, even as young as you are, Humza, words of wisdom from a great entrepreneur, and I can't wait to see the next 5 to 10 years of your life in this business model. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. I hope it was as insightful for you as it is for me. We hope to see you again next week on another episode of The Roadmap.
Thanks for watching The Roadmap with Lee Heisman.